All right. Hey, everybody. Had a little technical difficulty on my end, but we are here. We made it. So, giving everybody a couple minutes to join here. If you were joining from a different link, um, that's where the trouble was from. So, hopefully, everyone gets the alert and can just hop on the channel and arrive with us. So, we're going to dive into our topic this evening. So thank you all for being here. Our Ask the Trainer sessions are available for you as the viewers um, to ask any questions you want about dog training or yoga, dog yoga, or any of the adventures that we lead and kind of what they're all about. But each of these discussions, I also have a topic planned to share with you all. So our topic for this session will be around you as the human part of the human dog relationship and how you are everything. How you show up matters so much and really is what impacts your dog in whatever you do. And we're going to touch on too that so much of dog training is so dog focused. And we forget that there's the human component to it. So let's start with that. Um, Anytime I am receiving a phone call or an email or an inquiry through social media about private dog training, or if someone's inquiring to come to one of my classes, it's almost always the conversation surrounds around the dog. Many times these conversations start off with what's wrong, what's not going well, which makes sense if you're reaching out for help, right? A lot of us, anytime, human or dog, when we're asking for help, we're not listing off all the amazing things that are happening or that we're good at. We're looking for help for the things that we need help on. So that's really, really common when uh, people are reaching out for help. But so much of the conversation, and I think a lot of dog trainers lean this way as well, is about the dog, watching what the dog does, their behavior, what the dog's needs are, what training methods we're going to use for that dog. And so many times when it's so dog centered, the human part of the equation, of course, is factored in because with every dog I've worked with, there's always a human attached to it. But a lot of times we're not looking at what the human is doing or if the person accepts the training methods, if the person feels comfortable, if the person is able to accomplish those tasks, right, that you're asking of them. So, starting to shift our focus not only on our dogs and what's happening with them, but really what we're doing that can help support them. It's kind of where I come from in terms of my training style. Sometimes supporting our dogs can be using treats. Sometimes it's using our collar and leash. Sometimes it's management, right? Whatever can be supportive of that individual dog, I'm open to trying, right? But it has to make sense for that dog, and the person has to feel comfortable with that as a method for them. So shifting our focus. So if we're focused on what our dog is doing, like how does that tie to us? So if we talk about dog reactivity, which is something we cover a lot here on, on our channel on these sessions, because it's such a common problem. And not even dog reactivity when we're talking about dog aggression, but we're also talking about anxiety. So many dogs will be reactive just because they're anxious and they are looking for direction. And so they'll react to other people, they'll react to dogs, they'll react to their environment. Maybe it's something they're unsure of. And there's so much room for us as dog owners, handlers, trainers to support our dog in that way. Give them the direction that they need and help support them so they don't feel the need to be reactive. There's a range with reactivity, right? And then there's also different ways to approach reactivity. But the way we show up really matters. What so often happens is when our dog is struggling, it's really painful for us. It's hard to watch our dog struggling with something such as reactivity or separation anxiety or true fear of different things in the environment and not feel something, right? Like that's the point of our relationship is that we care about our dogs. So with that being said, how we feel matters, right? Of course, if you're seeking help for your dog, which a lot of you are, it's you're doing the right thing in your heart for your dog. But sometimes our feelings can perpetuate some of the problem, right? So if my dog is reactive and I see another dog and I instantly tense up and go, uh-oh, this is going to go bad. And sometimes we say that out loud with things with like reactivity. We're giving that clear signal to our dog that it is unsafe, accidentally, right? And I'm not telling you it's easy to be relaxed when your dog is anxious or that your dog is reactive. That takes time to practice and repetition and having skills, right? And that's the point of us as dog trainers is to, I believe, to give people skills so that you have a plan, so that it turns into when you go into a situation and your dog is reactive or your dog is fearful, that you can then go, it's okay, I got you. And a lot of times I have people say that out loud. They'll see another dog and they're like, I got this. Because when we say, I got this, the intention is totally different. Whether it's messy, whether you just get through it, whether it's the first time you're going out with your dog practicing these new skills, it's okay. It's not about the actual session per se. It's about your intention and again, how you show up. So if I show up to take my dog out and I'm like, I got this, like now that I have some skills, I know what to do. I'm going to have my dog sit. I'm going to have my dog check in with me. I'm going to let them know that that dog's not going to get too close to them and that I've got them. At first, you still may feel anxious. You still may be holding your breath. You still may be tense. But starting off with that intention is so big, right? And this ties to yoga. We set intentions in yoga all the time, but why don't we do that in the rest of our life? Why don't we do that in our dog training? We think of goals, right? But like, okay, I can be thinking about the end goal. My dog's not reacting, but what's the intention there? Like, I want to support my dog as the intention, and I want to make sure that they get what they need from me. And so, what are my tools in place to do that? So, even saying something out loud, which we do this in yoga and they're called mantras, it's like, I got this, is like, it changes my whole energy and my attitude rather than I see a dog and I'm like, oh crap, this is going to go, this is going to go bad, which for most of us with our dogs, or your dog loves people. They're not reactive, but I mean, they can be reactive and just be over the top, right? They don't need to be aggressive to be over the top. And they see other dogs and they're having these big reactions and you're like, uh-oh, like my dog's going to drag me over to the neighbor's dog. I can't hold on. I have to drop my leash. Those type of scenarios. Same thing. If you set that off, your set your time off and your session off with, oh, this is going to go bad. It's probably going to, because you've set that intention. Your body language matches that. Your mindset matches that. And then your body follows too. So shifting that perspective. Yes, we're focused on our dog, but what if it stops being so dog centered when we train our dogs and it shifts to looking at us and how we show up? Sometimes that's very eye-opening for us, and that's actually harder than looking at our dogs, right? Looking at ourselves and starting to say, well, I guess I got to take accountability for how I'm showing up. And sometimes we're showing up kind of like a hot mess, right? You're like, I don't know what to do. And I am a hot mess right now. That's okay, right? But it's the acknowledgement of that. And then what do you choose to do from there? Okay, I'm not feeling 100% my game. Do we go a different way where I know I'm not going to see a lot of distractions today because I'm going to support myself because I'm not on my game? Like I'm thinking about other things at work or I'm distracted mentally. So I'm having a hard time being present. If that's happening, give yourself permission, right? To go a different way, to not work on it, whatever you're working on that day, to just, have a walk where you can kind of just be with your dog. But when you check in with yourself and you show up authentically and you're honest with yourself about really anything in life, but with your dog, the rest follows, right? And I think that we can adapt our training. It doesn't have to be the same thing every day. We can adapt based on how we feel and how our energy, and it will shift your relationship with your dog. If it's not just dog centered, but you centered, because it is a relationship and a partnership. So starting with that intention is it's going to go, It's going to go okay. It's going to be all right. We got this, right? So I always use you got this. Um, and then bringing your skills in. So that's there's skills and there's relationship. And then there's that intention, which is relationship based, I believe. Bringing those skills into place. Working on your skills too as a dog owner, handler, or trainer. So I was working with somebody today before this, and I've worked with her and all three of her dogs. Um, she's someone who loves her dogs, does everything she needs to support her dogs, and each dog has been uniquely different. And so this is her third dog that we've worked with together, and he's now 9 months old, and he's just confident, and he's like in a teenager stage where he's full of himself. So he's trying all these things. One of them's barking and demanding, like, hey, let's get moving. I want cookies. And that's what you'll see sometimes from confident dogs. So we started to work with him today. And what we started to dig into was really fine, detailed handling because this dog was confident and he's like, I need to be challenged to the next thing. So instead of making this laundry list of skills he has to learn, we made him more accountable for every action that he does know and the details and about their relationship, even so much as to how um, this person held their leash, where they placed their treats, how they took treats, where their treat pouch was on them, how they took treats, reminded the dog they had to stay in position. Really, really thin slices of these details that was really fun with somebody who's had a bunch of different dogs. And we can start to build those skills a little bit more. So when you're thinking about working with your dog, it's not just are they sitting and are they checking in? There's so much going on with your body language that your dog is watching. I've probably said this, probably all heard this before, is our dogs know us better, I believe, than anybody in our lives. They are the ultimate study in behavior. They watch everything that we do and they pick up on all of that. So when we're training them, if we think a little bit more about what our actions are actually doing, that's going to enhance your training and your relationship so much further than just looking at the behavior you're trying to teach. It's like, how do you look? How are you showing up? If you're on your first dog, right? It's your first dog ever, and you're like, I'm just glad to learn the basics. Yes. We all have our first dogs, and those are always the dogs we try things on, right? And if you've had a dog that's really challenging as your first dog, they will pave the way for the rest of your dogs. My first dog was really, really challenging. She had kind of all of the issues a dog could have in one. Um, and it was the biggest blessing for me. It was very challenging because I didn't know a lot. 20 years ago, I didn't know as much as maybe I do now. Um, and over the course of her lifetime, I learned more and more things that ended up supporting her in such a nicer way than when I first started the first 2 years of her life. So looking at your dog, if it's your first dog, you're going to learn your basic skills. That's great. And then if you're working with a trainer, and those of you working with me, or if you're here on our YouTube channel, we talk about those finer details that are only going to enhance your relationship with your dog. So they study us, they know us. This is why some dogs, when you turn off the TV, will jump up and they run to the kitchen. This is why, with my dogs, when I let them out for the last time in the evening, they run to the kitchen, they wait for their cookie, and then they race to their beds in our bedroom. It's all conditioned. That's behavior that, I mean, I've taught them to do that a little bit, but I didn't start to teach that as a known behavior. I just did it one day, and then the next day, that's what it is. They're like, I watched her, she let us in, this is what's happening next. So they're just studying all the time. This does not mean that you go around worrying about what you're doing or your body language around your dogs. Just be yourself. Where this comes into play is when you want to really teach them, or you want to be able to guide your dog through an activity in a certain way. So we'll talk about different activities in just a moment. So how you show up matter, not just looking at your dog, but looking at you and what you do, and then your body language. So we're going to work from the outside in when we address ourselves in terms of what our dogs see and feel. We'll think of it that way. So when you show up, you check in with yourself. You're like, how do I feel today? Right? And do I have energy? Do I have focus? What's my intention when I'm going out for this walk? How do I want this to go? And then we think about our physical body, right? So we're talking about our body language that we give to our dogs because they're watching all of that. Beneath that layer is our breathing. So in dog yoga, this is such a beautiful way to practice breath work and teaching your dog to mirror that and be in connection with you. Practicing it in that fun way, it means it can translate to the rest of your life with your dog. You have your physical body, but your breathing matters. We as humans to humans pick up on each other's breathing. If someone's, first of all, when you see somebody, if they're standing really stiff, not moving, and they're not breathing, we're concerned instantly. Like, whoa, that person's stressed. We just read that body language and go, okay, they're still. And we might not even be aware they're not breathing, but it's subconscious that we pick up that they're not breathing. They don't look relaxed. So this is exactly what happens when we show up and our dogs are nervous and we get nervous or we're unsure, we freeze. I do this all the time when I'm learning something new. When I'm learning something new, I get in my head and then I forget what my body's doing. And it's there's a very stark contrast between that and the other. So when I'm learning something new, I always remind somebody that's teaching me, this is brand new to me. I need you to spell it out really clearly. And then once I have that, I'm good. And then I can be a little more present in my body. But I notice my mind will do that. So knowing yourself when you learn new things, that can be a helpful tool. But we show up like that with our dogs. Tension, not breathing. Your dog picks up on you not breathing. Dogs, the way they communicate together, a lot of behaviorists and trainers will say, I know exactly what those dogs are communicating. Like, I've worked with dogs for like 2 decades now. I can tell you what body language means. I can tell you when maybe something's building. You might have a problem. You might have a dog fight that's going to be brewing. Subtle shifts in their body language. We notice that. Their energy, looking below and beneath the surface of their physical bodies. But dogs communicate with each other in a way that maybe if we were studying them the way they studied us every day, we would understand and see that nuance. But there's so much happening, and breath is part of that. If dogs are holding their breath, if dogs are shallow breathing, if dogs are doing that, other dogs pick up on that. So it's so common in a group setting if you have a dog that's reacting and maybe it's short breathing or it's really like nervous. The dogs around it are also really nervous until we start to calm everyone down. Allow that dog to settle in because they're social beings just like us. So when we're in a group setting, if we're in a group yoga class, there's something beautiful about the collective energy when it's humans only. Our dogs benefit from that when we practice with them. But dogs also have their social piece. This is why when you have a dog that's reactive and you bring around a really calm, confident dog, they start to mirror that and they calm down. As long as they have the skill set and their human has the skill set in place, we can work that a lot with people. TAO does a lot of that work with me. River's learning to do that work with me too, where you just stay here and you're going to be calm and steady with me. And that it helps. We do a lot of walks with other people and their dogs to help that other dog understand, like, you don't need to react. This dog's cool, you're cool. They feed off of each other in the reactive way, the way you don't want, and also in such a positive way. But their communication, what's going on, but breathing matters. If a dog is still and holding their breath or breathing really shallow, that's sending a very clear message to the other dog. If it's one-on-one or the dog's in the space, something's about to happen. We're the same way. We're just not as aware, maybe as dogs are, of each other and how they do that. Hey, Briv. What do you think? Come here. So thinking about that piece, what your physical body looks like to your dog, what you're breathing, what's happening with your breathing. being more aware of that. And then beneath that, your energy, right? And so many times if we talk about energy, people are like, Steph, you're out there. Like, what's this energy thing? As we're more aware of ourselves, we're more aware of how our energy is and how it impacts other beings around us. I like to think of if I go in a room and there's a lot of tension in the room, I can feel it immediately. That's energy. You come in, there's a lot of nervous energy, you walk in. Everyone is standing, everyone's really serious, you walk in. It hits me like a wall. Same with if someone is really upset, right? I will share that with them. So some of us are more sensitive to other energies of dogs. I'm sensitive to dogs if they're anxious or reacting. Um, but we all have a certain energy level that shifts, right? And some of us are more sensitive to it, others. The more you tap into it, the more sensitive you do become. So going beneath all those layers, if we're working the way out for the way the dog sees it, but really how your energy is and how you feel. If you're feeling really like sad one day, your energy is really low, you kind of have nothing left to give that day, that's reflected in your physical body. It's reflected in your breathing and it's reflected in your physical body. So we talk about our dogs seeing us physically, but if you really think of it, they're seeing physically from the outside in. Really, all of that's coming from the inside out. Our bodies reflect that. You'll see that if you have it's a little different post COVID because a lot of us are working from home, but we still have like meetings online. I know a lot of people are back in the office. When you look at someone's body posture and how they feel, if you start to look at their physical body, you can really see how they feel inside, right? When someone's upset or someone's stressed, a lot of things come forward. They're closed off, they're sitting at their desk, the breathing is here. As we relax, our heart lifts, our shoulders drop back, there's more room to breathe. Right? There's a different set in our body. So that's just that part of our body. You can see it in how people stand, how people are feeling, and that's someone's energy, right? That's what's happening inside and how they feel. Someone can also be, uh, tired and stuff. Um, so that really matters, right? Hey, Henry. Oh, you want to see the dog? You want to see River again? Come here, Riv. Come here. They're both sleeping just out of camera. River, come here. Come here. This is River. Tao was with me a little bit earlier. Tao is sleeping in the corner of the room. And you can see River's just hanging out here with me. So, talking a little bit about energy, this is actually a good time. Looking at River right now. Come here, bud. Come over here. Can you hang with me? He wants to sleep on like the dog bed that's in here. So, River hanging out here, you can see his body language. This is actually good. We're hanging out in my yoga space right now. And when we talk about dogs picking up on our energy, I would ask you, those of you that are hanging out with us, what you think my energy is based on what my dog is doing, if you want to chime in. All right, River's here. He's laying down. I had to wake him up to come back over so you guys could see him in the screen. And our energies are in sync, right? So I'm very relaxed. This is my yoga space, and this is where I work, and we'll work and create content, but this is such a creative space for me, and the energy and the way the space is set up and the lighting is really conducive for me to relax. So right now I'm very relaxed, hanging out with all of you, and the dogs reflect it. If I wasn't, River would be, he's very connected in that way. He's very sensitive to how I am. He'd be bugging me. He'd be whining and circling and carrying on. River is a dog that I do sport with. So we trial and train in a sport called American Schutzen. So River does protection. So he does bite work. River does obedience, and he also does detection and scent work. So those are the 3 phases that we train in. When River is in that mode, he is intense, fast. I would describe his behaviors as explosive, meaning like that much energy, right? He's just like bringing everything he has, and he loves that. But when we practice yoga, this is what he is. Even if I bring food out, I have some food in here, and I'll as I do a yoga flow and I'm teaching, and our dogs go through their yoga flow in our practice, he will do that. And then if I ask him to lay down, he'll lay back down. He does not bring the same level of intensity back into um, yoga. But that's because that's how I'm showing up. And that's conditioning. So beneath those layers of what your dog physically sees, if I change my breathing and I'm out on a field trialing with River, or I'm nervous, he absolutely reflects it. If I'm nervous and I hesitate, he'll lag behind me and almost like it's almost like if you could ask him, he's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" But I'm nervous, right? If I'm trialing, if I'm training with him, we're free. We're having a good old time. I'm very relaxed. When I'm trialing, I'm nervous. So he reflects that in the hesitation. So it's not him, that's me. How am I showing up? And we can teach ourselves to show up differently. I've never trialed with a dog before. I've had dogs for many years, worked with a ton of guide dogs, service dogs, puppies, worked with a ton of dogs, but never trialed a dog on a field in more of a competitive setting. Um, and so he's taught me a lot about this. That's why I'm sharing it with you. Our dogs, different dogs will teach you different things. So he taught me that last June we trialed. I was really nervous. This June, I adjusted and genuinely showed up in a different space. I was not really nervous. We were prepared. We did our thing. It went great because we were working together. It wasn't about what was going on around us. It was just another training day for us, except for we were trialing and there's a bunch of people there. So it's conditioning. How you show up is how your dog shows up. So when I'm teaching a group dog training class, so we'll touch on some of the offerings and how that shows up in that I do. Whether you're practicing with us virtually, so if you're practicing here on YouTube with us, or you're practicing one of our virtual monthly live classes that I offer, or you're in person with us, all of these concepts apply. We're working with our dogs almost to turn them on and turn them off. So it's kind of a simple, really simple way to look at it. When I'm working with River and I want his energy up, he's on. And I want him to be on. So he has the space to do that. And we share that. And I am like enthusiastic. And when he does something right, I am literally cheering and jumping, which I should probably film and show some of you because you're used to seeing me in this context, to show you how much our energy is up. But in yoga, I don't do that, right? Because I want to create this space for us where he can have all the benefits from yoga, his own yoga, which is canine fitness that strengthens him and will strengthen your dogs as you practice, but also to give us this space. Because before I do anything with him, he likes to be energetic. He likes to bring it. So he knows through calm touch. If I put my hand on him, he knows that can be calming. He knows my energy. If I'm really relaxed, my body position's relaxed, my shoulders are back. I'm not standing really stiff. I'm standing with a hip to one side with him. That's all the body language. And then I relax and breathe. And that's exactly how I stand before we both turn on and we go out onto a field to trial. He's calm and relaxed. He's hanging out with me. And then in an instant, it's like, let's switch. Let's go do this thing for like 6 minutes straight with that energy. And then after, we turn back off. So all of the offerings that I have an element of that. Yoga, that variation, we don't go from here to here to here. We do a little of this. So in yoga, we don't use food. We introduce a little food. We get our dogs up moving. We go back to our yoga. Our dogs settle again. Introduce a little bit. They're active. And then ending with calm touch and our dog's relaxed. So I think a lot of people ask, and you might be wondering this too, are your dogs always like this stuff? No. And I don't want them to be, but I do at times. And this is really healthy for our relationship because I'm go, go, go. And my dogs will follow me all around the house doing my thing all day because they're like, we're going to go outside. We're going to, and then at a certain point in the night, they also shift gears because my routine, so it's all conditioning and I shift. So as the evening wears on, I shift, maybe watch some TV or read, and they understand it's like time that we're going to power down now. But that's because of what I'm doing, right? If I worked the night shift and I was up walking my dog now before I went to work, they would come alive at that time and they would know to sleep in the mornings when I came home or something like that. So your dogs will be flexible into your routine because of what you're doing. So you're all naturally doing this with your dogs. This conversation is just about being more aware of that, right? Thinking about what you're actually doing in your routine and why your dogs are reacting a little bit. And again, it's not to like obsess over it and pay attention to every little detail of your whole day. You can like live your life and focus on other things, but um, pausing throughout your day for a little bit and just kind of thinking about what your dog is doing and like what you're doing and how they're reacting to that, or if you're having um, any of that strain and conflict. So I always see that conflict as like you're out of sync with each other. I don't see this as the person is a bad dog owner at all. That never comes to mind for me. And that this is a bad dog. That doesn't come to mind either. There's just conflict. Sometimes we have a dog that has way more energy than us, and we're like really low key. What happens there is that dog with high energy will naturally become a little bit more low key because that influence, right? And we might have to have a little more energy because we have a dog that requires more. So then we kind of meet there. There has to be some kind of meeting of the minds and meeting of the energies with our dogs and making sure their needs are met. So it really comes down to you and how you show up. And what do you want with your dog? What I want with my dogs is maybe different than what you want with your dogs. But I don't think you can ever go wrong with looking at how you show up and what you do, and how that impacts everything. So our chat is open. If anybody, I will keep chatting as we go, but if anybody wants to um, ask any questions or has anything specific they want to go over. Hi, River. I bet after I stop petting him, he'll just like drop his head back down. So that's another thing. Yeah, they're conditioned to. So they're like, if big sigh. So he lets out a big sigh. So dogs are conditioned to what you do. So my dogs also know if I'm talking and the computer's on, I teach a lot virtually with them. So they know. They're like, okay, she's going to talk. They'll just like lay here for like 3 hours if we wanted to talk for 3 hours and just hang out. But once I wrap up, I stand up. They're like, okay, are we going to go to the kitchen? Like, what are we doing? And then I'm like, no, we're going to go put our pajamas on and we're going to unwind now. Then they're like, okay, cool. We'll go curl up on the couch with you. So noticing that. The other thing I want to, since we have some time left, is talk to you about too is like knowing your dog. I've had people say to me before, hold on. I've had people say to me before that they're upset that their dog doesn't want to snuggle with them or curl up on the couch with them or be in close contact with them. And I love when people bring that up. And probably because it's like one of those kind of like wormholes for me. I'm like, ooh, this is my favorite things to talk about. So they're probably like, oh my gosh, didn't even think that there could be that much about it. There's so much to that. And that does not mean your dog doesn't love you, doesn't mean your dog doesn't like you, doesn't mean your dog is not into you, doesn't mean it's a mismatch at all. So it's a huge misconception. The one I remember years ago, I was at a training seminar and I was assisting with this training seminar, and um, we were talking about this, and someone said they were so upset that their dog, um, and I met their dog and I saw this in the space, that their dog didn't greet them when they came home, that their dog barely got off the couch, was just like hey, you're here, like barely acknowledged them when they came home. And they were really, really upset about that. And I can understand that totally. 'Cause I'm like, I think a little part of us always wants our dogs to be excited, you know? Tao's excited to see me. She'll jump around and squeak a little. River like vocalizes and like sings, like to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, the neighbors are gonna hear you. I'm like, go get your toy. And it's this big, whether I'm gone for 20 minutes or 3 hours, it's like this big thing. So it can be overly enthusiastic where you have too much of it too, right? There can be too little, too much. I thought that was really interesting because that woman was really upset about that. And her feelings are totally valid, right? Because that's what she wanted. But when I actually thought about that after, it was like a 1 hour session. Um, and I was observing this as another trainer working with them and giving her a lot of really, really good advice. I thought about it after and I thought, like, what a cool dog. Because that dog is so comfortable within themselves and so confident and so okay that that doesn't rock their world when their person comes and goes. So I admired the dog for it. And I think looking at that now, if I had a dog that did that, I'd be like, you're a really cool dog. I've met a lot of dogs, and all dogs are cool. But a dog that, and I had a mastiff that had that kind of like confidence. And she was just like, she was excited to see me when I got home, like really excited, but she was good. And she just exuded that confidence and she was okay with that. So it's not about that person's dog not caring about them. It's not about that dog not wishing they were there the whole time. A dog was just good, right? In terms of it was good within itself. It didn't feel the need like it had to um, didn't feel the need that it had to react when the person got home. And I just think that's how the dog was. He was kind of like, I'm good, like I'm cool. He worked with her beautifully. They were a great team. There was nothing, they were just working on some new skills. There was nothing like no problems, but like that was the big problem. And for her, it was very real. So I'm not minimizing that at all. But there's two ways to look at it, right? We look at the dog, coming back to the beginning of our conversation, we look at the dog as having that a problem. But is that a problem? When you look at the human, it was a problem for the human. Well, what needs are not addressed, right? What does she need that she's asking from the dog that the dog's like, I'm good. Like I'm really good. And I bet there's a lot of ways that that dog, how that dog is so supportive of her in her everyday life. Being that steady constant, being that grounding feeling. I had a dog like this, and she was like the grounding force in our house. Like all was right in the world, she was there. Like it was all good. I think dog can be very grounding. So there's so much in that relationship. It's not based on that greeting. There was so much beauty in that relationship that happened all the time. It's just that was a human looking for something. Like, what is that? That the dog, we look to our dog to provide. It's an interesting, different way to look at it. Not as much dog centered, more human centered. That. But in teaching dog yoga, all dogs, what I've learned is when somebody says, like, my dog doesn't like to be touched, or when we do the calm touch, they move away and they go lay down and they just like watch the person. I've also worked with a lot of German Shepherds, and that can be really common in German Shepherds. If you have a golden retriever, mostly they're on their mat. They don't want you to stop touching them. It's hard to do the yoga, so you yoga around them. And that's a whole different experience where they almost want you to keep your hands on them the whole time. And it upsets them if you don't. Whereas some dogs want their space. Every dog has their personal preference. So, how a dog positions themselves space wise from you is natural to that dog. All of my dogs have been off leash trained. Tao likes to range double the distance or triple the distance that River likes to naturally range. That's who they are. From puppyhood, Tao was always very independent. River was much more like, what are we doing? I want to stay near you. Um, they're both confident dogs. It's just different. Tao's like uber confident. Like she's one of those dogs that's like really good within herself. She's like, I'm good anywhere we go. Whereas River really wants that. What are we doing? What are we doing together? So every dog is different. The way they use space on our hikes is different. when they position themselves in a room. So at night, Tal likes to sleep on my feet. That's her spot. River likes to sleep on the floor. That's his preference. And he always has like the same spot in front of the bed or on the side of the bed. It wouldn't matter how much I encouraged him to snuggle, how much I asked him to be closer. That's his preference, or he'll lay right by the doorway, right? That's him. And that's what he naturally brings to it. No need to change it, right? There's just some acceptance of he's not the dog that's going to sleep on my feet every night, right? Like Tao. They're different. So it's not necessarily about us, right? It's your dog's personal preference. So the space they use around you is a personal preference. Also, how they feel about touch. So teaching calm touch in our dog yoga classes, every dog responds differently. Some dogs are really excited by touch. They're by it. Some dogs relax into touch the second you put your hands on them. They're like, that's amazing. Other dogs, it feels almost like tingly. So it's not like stimulated, like, oh, I'm excited. This is great. I want more because it's exciting. A little bit like I'm uncomfortable. I don't like touch because it makes me uncomfortable. So every dog responds differently. So when we do calm touch in yoga, it's the same thing every time to build that trust with our dogs, whatever their response is, right? Some dogs, you take more of a break in between. Other dogs will let you do a lot more. That also comes to your energy. So in the beginning of a yoga class, a lot of times I don't mention putting your hands on your dog. If they come over to you, yeah, pet them a little bit, acknowledge them, but then go back to your practice. It's not until the end. And that's because our energy is different. When we arrive to our yoga mat, we're disengaging from the rest of our lives. We're taking a little bit of like this time for us. So you might be jumping off your computer to hop on a 6 o'clock live class with me, and you're like switching gears. So when you first arrive, that first 10, 15 minutes, you're shifting into your body, into your breath, and then how you feel, and becoming really present. Once we find that space, putting our hands on our dogs, the information and message we're giving them is so very different than when we're upset or we're anxious or we're stressed out. It feels better to our dogs when we put our hand on them and we're nice and calm. I remember stretched a little bit. So thinking about that, right? So if it was the first thing in the morning, River is not like this. He is like recharged his batteries. He's jumping around the house. He's making a lot of noise. Like it's like I should not even have an alarm clock. The sun comes up, he sees it, and he's on. Tal will sleep in till whenever. He will sleep in after he does his morning greeting. I'm like, go lay down. We got a half an hour more. He'll sleep in a little, but that's his energy. So I'm not going to really, besides saying, hey, buddy, good morning, I'm not doing any calm touch because I'm just waking up. I'm saying how I feel as I start my day. And he's bringing all this energy. So for me, like even putting my hand on, that's too much for me in the morning. I want to make my coffee. I want to like do my morning routine a little bit. He's ready to like go for a 6-mile hike at 5:30 a.m. So not a good time for me to put my hands on him because he's already excited and I'm not in this calm space. I'm like waking up and I don't want his lot of energy to like almost jolt me awake. So we can be affected by our dogs just as much as they're affected by us. So calm touch I like to do when I'm relaxed in the evening, when I'm really present or I'm practicing yoga. I'll do my own yoga practice and then do some calm touch with the dogs because it builds trust. It teaches them that when I put my hand on you, it's coming from a really calm, present place. They will let you know if you do this with your dogs. They will also let you know when you're not really present or you're upset or you're sad or you're anxious or you're worried, whatever you're feeling, because it comes through your touch, right? So what we feel inside shows up in our physical body, and that includes your hands. So when you place your hand on your dog, that's calm, they feel that. The intention is different. If we're worked up and you go to do this with your dog, doesn't mean not to do it. Just be aware that they may react differently, or if they're not settling, and address yourself. Like, am I really present? Or am I just kind of like half here? Am I checking something on my phone and I'm just kind of petting my dog? Like, that's also okay too. But if your intention is to kind of have that shared experience, you want to be really present. So a lot of times my phone is plugged into the bedroom and I'm like in the living room with my dogs. Like, I'm actually really present. And if I'm watching a movie, right, I'm splitting my attention a little bit, but that helps me to relax and just kind of unwind. So the idea about touch and how our dogs respond to it, it's not all about us. It's about us when we put our hands on our dogs. What are you bringing to it? But how they respond, if you're coming from a real calm, present place, you can actually get a real response on do they like touch or not. So a lot of times in training, I don't have people touch their dogs, especially if dogs are really excited, um, because a lot of times the dog doesn't enjoy it. They're out, they're stimulated, and then someone pets them. A lot of time, oh, good boy, good girl. It's like it just fires them up, excites them because that can be really exciting touch. River probably won't do it right now, but I'm like, oh, he's not going to do it. We'll have to show everybody some videos of you revved up. But even then, he's just like, okay, like he knows I'm being silly, but he's like, we're doing yoga. He thinks we're doing yoga right now because we are. We're on my yoga mat and I'm relaxing and I'm talking to all of you. Very similar to me teaching yoga. Hi, bud. And Tao's over in the other corner of the room. Sleeping by the plant. So, just things to think about when you're working with your dogs, right? All the dog training classes, the group classes I hold monthly. So I offer group dog training classes here in person in Connecticut. I offer group hikes. We do yoga hikes where we hike to a destination, do yoga with our dogs, and then hike back. And outdoor yoga classes. I've been leading paddle adventures, so kayaking and paddling with your dog, paddle boards down the river that we have here. And just different ways to enhance our relationship and get out there with our dogs. Right. So it's a combination of excitement, like hiking is fun and the dogs are really excited when we first start. We get 20 minutes in and they all really settle in and they're like, all right, we're good. I'm going to cruise along for the next 60 minutes or so. So finding this, right? I love to offer ways to find this, not with my own dogs, I do, but like with everybody and their dogs too. And same with virtual, right? You can absolutely take all these concepts and apply them to your life. And a lot of times people are like, Steph, I'm not into yoga, but I joined because I can bring my dog. So you're going to learn a lot of dog yoga for your dog, but it's all based in canine fitness exercises. So it's all beneficial to your dog. They might be called the same things that we do, but it's actually all based in canine fitness that's specifically designed to benefit your dog. So there's a lot happening. What I love about yoga is even if you're somebody that's never done yoga and you're coming for your dog, that's awesome because you'll still get the benefits of yoga and you can do as much of the yoga as you want, or you can sit and just hang out on your mat and do the dog part and just breathe with us, right? It's for you to do anything that you like with it. What I also love about the community that we have in person and also online is everyone has the freedom to do what's right for them and their dogs. Right. So I've had people in the middle of a yoga class with a young puppy, say their puppy's like 6 months old, get up, take their puppy for a little walk because their puppy was like doing really well, but getting a little antsy. And an hour is too long for that young pup. Take it for a walk, come back, do some of the calm touch with us, and wrap up class with us. And there's nothing more heartwarming for me than to see someone supporting their dog in that way. And I feel like that's what we should always be doing, supporting ourselves, what feels good for us and right for us, and supporting our dogs. So all of my offerings are that, whether you're here online with us or you're in person. I always want you to feel like you can advocate for your dog, what your needs are for each of you. And hi, bud. And yeah, do what works best, I should say, for you. Are you the timekeeper, River? I know, everyone's here for the dogs. Good boy. You guys just hanging out? So they know too about when the time is up. I don't know how they know. Dogs know in dog yoga when Shavasana is happening and when we're wrapping up class, they just know and they usually shift a little bit and start to wake up and are ready to rock and roll. My dogs know too. A lot of the classes I teach online are an hour long. So as we get to that mark, they're waking up a little bit and shifting gears. So I'll stay here for a couple more minutes. If anybody has any other questions or anything that they want to add, you can. We'll hang here for a couple minutes. And those of you that are signing off, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you spending your evening here. And I will also put this out, it'll be saved to my channel. So if you weren't able to join or you wanted to share this with someone else, it will be here. Or also you can revisit this particular topic. So it'll be here for you when you want that. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in. I will sign off. We will see you guys back here next month. This month, I'm really focusing on getting more yoga videos out as I shift gears. The summer was pretty busy here. We took advantage of as many nice days as we could to get out. But yeah, as the fall comes, it'll be more centered toward indoor activities. So that means more videos here. So everyone enjoy the rest of your day and thanks for joining and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.